Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So believe it or not, I got a question, and the question was, what is a wholesaler? And at first I'm like, I know the answer to that, but I understand that some people don't. So let me talk about what that means. So I have a definition of it, and other people have other definitions of it. That's the truth. There's a company called Wholesaling Inc. It used to be Tom Kroll and Cody Hoffine. And they had a conference about 5 years ago I went to. It was a huge waste of time for me, but a beautiful place, Asheville, North Carolina, gorgeous area, beautiful hotel. And they were saying wholesaling is just buying properties at a discount. That's what they said. I don't agree with that. So let me define what wholesaling is to me, and you can define it anywhere you want. So, sorry, I have to clean my lens. Okay, so I define wholesaling as buying discounted properties, usually via direct to seller marketing, and that's the sort of the basis of the business of being a real estate investor. And then what I do with it after, sometimes is wholesaling, sometimes is wholetailing, and sometimes is rehabbing, right? So the first 4 years I did this, like 2013, 14, 15, 16, all I did was rehabbing every property I bought. And I didn't buy a discount direct from seller, I bought them at auctions, right? Let's say I still bought them at a discount. And then I rehabbed the property, so I did major renovations to it, and then I sold it to an end user. What I do today is sometimes I wholesale the property. And what wholesaling means is that I lock up the property, or I get the property under contract, and I then assign that contract to somebody else who's going to do the work to it. Sometimes people that I partner with, sometimes people I don't. And I get, and I make a spread, an assignment fee on it. That happens sometimes. There's also something called wholetailing, where I will close on a property, I will buy the property, and then I will, what do I do? Oh, then I will do minimal work to it, almost nothing, so I don't consider it a rehab. Sometimes I'll do nothing to it, and I will then sell it to an end user buyer. Now, so I define wholesaling, if I had to define it, as buying properties at a discount, so that matches with them, but then assigning the contract. You see, in a lot of states, I mean, it's not in New York too, you can double close on it, which means you close on the property and then you sell it. Now, the complicated part about that is in New York, there are a lot of closing costs when you do that, so I rarely do it. So the easier way is to assign. Now, the reason why people double close in most states is because in most states it's very easy to get into contract and it's very easy to get out of contract. So if you get to a closing, for example, and the seller sees that you're making what he considers too much of an assignment fee, the seller can walk away and say, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not selling you the property. Or the buyer can do the same thing. Because it's really easy to just say, goodbye, walk away from a deal in most states. But in New York, it's impossible to walk away from a deal, either as a buyer or a seller. And therefore, even if a seller or a buyer looked at your assignment fee and decided that we're making, I guess, too much money, I mean, that's a very, very subjective term, or more money than they accept or they are okay with, they still cannot get out of the deal. Now, people say to me, well, how does the seller or the buyer know that? And the answer is, everyone in New York is represented by an attorney. So they're going to ask their attorney. And on many occasions, people have called me and said, I want more money, or I don't want to sell to you. And I've said something like, well, just speak to your attorney. And inevitably we closed. Because in New York, if a seller changes his mind, doesn't want to sell to you, and a buyer is willing to close, a buyer can do two things that are very, very significant. The first thing they can do is file a list pendants on the property, which is the same as if they were foreclosing on a mortgage, and that seller will never be able to sell it to anybody else. And the second thing they can do is sue the seller for specific performance for the entire purchase amount. And you will win. You will win, right? Unless the seller has some good reason not to sell it to you. So any attorney is going to realize that, and there really is no way out of the contract from a seller's perspective. And they're all right, I think I'm back. I've driven here and recorded on this stretch before, and I never had a problem with the connection, but now I did, of course. Okay. So, on the buyer side, if a buyer walks away, your main protection is that you can keep his deposit. But it's one of the best things about New York is that the seller cannot get out of the contract. In other states, what people do is they record the contract, they record an affidavit of contract, record a memorandum of contract. I don't know how much you saw, but so I said in other states, what wholesalers or real estate investors do is once a seller signs a contract, they either record the contract or an affidavit of contract or a memorandum of contract. But that does not really, I'm getting upset at this, I'm sorry. It doesn't ensure that the seller is going to sell it to you, because the seller cannot sell it to anybody. What those things do, recording, is it clouds title. And what that means, if he tries to sell it to somebody else, that title company should see that recorded document and call you, and you can make some money on it. It's not the same in New York. In New York, if you file a list pendants and sue the guy, he's definitely selling it to you and selling it real fast. So, I mean, that's really how I define wholesaling. I define wholesaling as buying a property at a discount and then assigning the contract, or theoretically double closing. I only double closed once in my life. I may try to double close more in the future if the situation warrants it. But in general, that's how I define wholesaling, right? And it's much easier to get into a wholesale contract in other states, because in 49 states, you have something called an inspection contingency, which allows you to do an inspection or find a buyer for this contract during that period of time. Also, standard contracts in most states are assignable. In New York, however, Clause 26 of the standard contract says no assignability. You have to get that removed if you want to assign. And all inspections get done before contract in New York. So when I'm selling a property to a retail buyer, and we agree on a price, they go do an inspection right away. And if they want to make any repairs, we put that in as an addendum to the contract. In all the other 49 states, you go to contract first, and that gives you some equitable interest in the property. That gives you something, locks up the deal, as they say. And then you have this period of time after for contingencies. It's not like that in New York. On commercial properties, there usually is a due diligence period in New York. The bigger the deal, the longer the due diligence period. But for residential properties, there really are, the only standard contingency on a standard sale is a mortgage contingency. And on my contracts, there's no contingency. So every single property I buy, I have to assign or I have to close on, which I'm fine with, and that happens all the time. So in general, that is what a wholesaler is to me. And according to Tom Kroll, it's something else. And I love Tom Kroll. I think he's great. He said basically buying properties at a discount is wholesaling. I don't look at it that way, because I have different exit strategies, and I don't consider it a wholesale deal unless I am assigning the contract. Now, I hope this was helpful to you. I know this was cut up in the middle because I didn't have great connectivity, and I apologize. But if you are interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you are interested in finding out more about one-on-one coaching I offer, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you are interested in, that's pretty much all you're interested in, okay? If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes really help me. And what else? Oh yeah, if you're, please keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week. I really don't always know what to say, so keep the questions coming. There are no bad questions. You can ask any question. It doesn't even have to be about the video you're watching. If it's a simple answer, I'll reply with an answer. If it's something I've covered before, I'll send you links to videos on it. The lighting is terrible here. I'm sorry. Maybe this is better. Is that better? I can see my forehead anymore. And if you ask a question that's something new, I will do a video on. So this was based on a question. So keep the questions and comments coming. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very, very, very much.